Shalom, family.
Shalom.
And welcome to another new moon. Yahweh be praised. We've made it on to another month. And for those who are new in the word and don't understand, a new moon, if you look out into the skies right now, you will not see the moon. It is there, but you will not see the moon. This is also the beginning of a new month, and that's according to Yahweh's calendar system, not according to the Hebrew culture, not according to the Hebrew calendar. That's Yahweh's system. A new moon begins a new month. You won't see the moon if you look up into the skies right now. Tonight's sermon is called Just Men. Once again, it's called Just Men. We're going to begin tonight in Revelations chapter 17, and we're going to read verse 1, just so we can get a foundation of who is talking and who is being spoken to. That's Revelations chapter 17 and verse 1.
And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters.
Okay, let's go to Revelations chapter 19, and we're going to start at verse 1. We're going to go verse 1 through 10. So as we can see in Revelations chapter 17, he's speaking to an angel. He says, and there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials and talked with me. So these conversations that he's having is taking place with an angel, just to set the foundation, because we'll see some things take place here shortly. And I wanted to set the foundation of who it is he's dealing with.
Revelations chapter 19 and verse 1. And after these things, I heard a great voice of much people in heaven, saying, Hallelujah! Salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Adonai, our Elohim. For true and righteous are his judgments. For he hath judged the great whore, which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. And again they said, Hallelujah. And her smoke rose up forever and ever. And the 24 elders, and the 24 elders and the 4 beasts fell down and worshipped Elohim that sat on the throne, saying, Amen and Hallelujah.
Now we see the 24 elders, the 24 elders and the four beasts fell down and worshipped Elohim that sat upon the throne. This is who they fell down to worship. Go ahead.
And a voice came out of the throne, saying, Praise our Elohim, praise Yah, all ye his servants, and ye that fear him, both small and great. And I heard as it were the voice of a great multitude, and as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of mighty thunderings, saying, Hallelujah, for the Adonai, Almighty, Elohim, omnipotent, reigneth. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. And he saith unto me, Right, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he saith unto me, These are the true sayings of Elohim. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, See you do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahshua, worship Elohim.
Let's jump and go to Revelations chapter 22, verses 8 through 9.
Okay.
Now here in verse 10, we see that he says, and I fell at his feet to worship him. Now he's watching all of this stuff take place. When we go further back up in verse 4, it says, and the 24 elders and the 4 beasts fell down to worship Elohim. So you see who everybody's worshiping. but yet you go to fall down to worship this angel that's speaking with you. How do you transgress from what you see going on in heaven to try to do your own thing? Revelations chapter 2, verses 8 through 9.
And I, Johanan, saw these things and heard them. And when I had heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel which showed me these things. Then saith he unto me, See thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of this book. Worship Elohim.
But we see back in chapter 19 who everybody's worshiping. Why do you have to be told this over and over? That's why I set the foundation in chapter 17 of who he's speaking with. You're speaking with an angel. But this angel continues to have to tell you, don't worship me. Worship Elohim. Go ahead, my brother.
No, I just wanted to say, in what you're saying, you know, when you're dealing with people, you know, they like to say, well, my pastor say, or, you know, this is what our priests are, you know, say.
Yes, sir.
But then again, they're not dealing with it with thus saith Yahweh.
You know, the thing about it, it's not just the Christians.
Yeah.
We think it's a Christian thing. Let's go to Acts chapter 10, and we're going to read verses 25 through 29. And while we're going there, Acts chapter 10, verses 25 through 29. Once again, we see here numerous occasions where Saul is making an attempt to fall down to worship at this angel's feet, and this angel has to keep telling him, don't do that. But what about the people who are doing this worship and we don't actually see them falling at our feet? Then that creates another problem. It was placed in my thoughts that there may be some among the congregation that may have placed leadership members of the congregation on a pedestal, and I was troubled when I was given confirmation that this is so. Whoever you are, I'm asking you, no, I'm begging you to stop such actions, as we, the leadership team of this congregation, are just men and women who endure pain, suffering, afflictions, heartaches, heartbreaks, disappointment, and betrayal just like any of you. And we are capable of making mistakes like any other man or woman. Whatever pedestal you have placed any of us on, please take us off. This same pedestal is what will stunt your own spiritual growth, because you will avoid going to the proper person to get your questions answered. There's a great difference between being put on a pedestal versus honoring the order. Let's not confuse the two. You'll see people walk through the halls and they're holding their head down or rushing past you. They won't come and ask questions. At the end of the day, we are just men. And we'll get further into that terminology of just men and women. But don't put us on a pedestal where you yourself are afraid to come and ask questions. And please don't put me up on a pedestal where it makes it easier for the angel to knock my head off. I need to stay down on the ground where he might just miss if he swings. Acts chapter 10, let's start at verse 25.
And as Cephas was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. But Cephas took him up, saying, Stand up, I myself also am a man. And as he talked with him, he went in and found many that were come together. And he said unto them, Ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Yehudi to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But Elohim hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Therefore came I unto you without gainsaying. As soon as I was sent for, I asked therefore, for what intent ye have sent for me.
Okay, let's go to, we're now going to go to Hebrews chapter 12. We're going to read verses 23 through 29. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 23 through 29. Even Cephas had enough sense not to allow this man to worship him. The sad thing is, in this day and age, we see our own Hebrew brothers who don't, or so-called Hebrew brothers, who don't have the wherewithal not to have somebody bow down to them. We can't be the same. It's like my brother was saying earlier about, we hear people saying, my pastor say, my preacher said. What does the book say? And we can't just continue to point fingers and say, the Christians are doing this. No, we have Hebrews that are doing the same thing. Let's not forget that that's where most of us came from. We have not dropped all of those ways. But we begin to have to shed those things by shedding light upon those things. We can't say we walked away from certain things while we're secretly taking pleasure in those things. My brother, go ahead and read the definition there.
Ka.
Yes.
Ka from H3541. Just so, referring to the previous or following context. After that, this manner, this matter. Even so, in such a case, thus.
And that's from H3541, just. Just so. We're just so flesh and blood. Just made after the manner and similitude of Elohim. Read the next definition for just for me, please.
Sadiq, from Hebrews H6663. Just, lawful, righteous man.
That's what we're striving for. We're just so, but we're striving to be just men, just righteous, which also we can hear in Melchizedek, Sadek, which means king of right, king of righteousness, king of just. Melchizedek. Go ahead, my brother. Hebrews chapter 12. We're going to start that at verse 23 to 29.
To the general assembly and church of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to Elohim, the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect, and to Yeshua, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling, that speaketh better things than that of Abel. See that ye refuse not him that speaketh. For if they escape not who refuse him that spake on earth, much more shall not we escape, if we turn away from him that speaketh from heaven, whose voice then shook the earth. But now he hath promised, saying, Yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also heaven. And this word, yet once more, signifieth the removing of those things that are shaken, as of things that are made, that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. Wherefore, we receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace, whereby we may serve Elohim acceptably with reverence and godly fear. For our Elohim is a consuming fire.
Our Elohim is a consuming fire. Verse 23, to the general assembly and church of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to Elohim, the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men, made perfect. That's what we're striving for. But at this point, we're still just men. We're going to go to Acts chapter 14, and we're going to start that at verse 11. When an obnoxious rebel is put out, everyone is joyful and at peace with it because they were all afflicted by their presence and doings. But when it is the quiet rebel, people want to be sympathetic to what is fed to them by whatever means the information comes, but will rarely do any diligent inquiry before they get caught up in their feelings. I was once asked, how do I go about putting people out when the time comes? The real question should be, what caused them to have to be put out in the first place? As stated in Ezekiel chapter 33 and verse 11, Yahweh has no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but that the wicked turn from his way and live. So do I take no pleasure in putting anyone out. But with correction, unseen patience, and long suffering, the leadership of this congregation is usually left with no choice. Are you the thing that is shaken, or are you that thing that remains because it cannot be shaken with other people's mess? Acts chapter 14 and verse 11.
And when the people saw what Saul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying, in the speech of Laconia, the gods are come down to us in the likeness of men. And they called Barnabas Jupiter and Saul Mercurius, because he was the chief speaker. Then the priest of Jupiter, which was before their city, brought oxen and garlands unto the gates, and would have done sacrifice with the people, which, when the apostles Barnabas and Saul heard of, they rent their clothes and ran in among the people, crying out and saying, Sirs, why do you these things? Why also are men of like passions with you, and preach unto you that ye should turn from these vanities unto the living Elohim, which made heaven and earth and the sea and all things that are therein.
In verse 15, just being able to do something someone else can't do, or just having knowledge that someone else doesn't have. People are ready to put you on this pedestal. They had to shout out, why do you these things? We also are men of like passions with you. And that's what I think confuses people and throw people off, because none of the leadership floats through the building. And at the end of the day, we might leave out of here and I might fly past you doing 120 miles per hour. Because Kish has a passion for speed. Now, are you going to look at me some kind of way? Oh, man, look at that brother. I thought he was holy. Because you put me on a pedestal, now me speeding past you is unholy? I'm a man of like passions like you. That's what we forget. And they called them Jupiter and Mercurius. I don't know if the image is still up. Now, if you look at Jupiter and you take a look at his face and you think of all the pictures that you've seen of Jesus, do you not see where it comes from? But then where did the Romans get Jupiter from? They stole him from the Greeks. It was Zeus. Now, the funny thing is, when you look at this picture, what do you see sitting down beside him there? If you're looking at the pictures to his right, the eagle. The eagle. So the eagle done flew all the way from Rome to America. And we don't think that the thought process of Zeus also flew all the way from Rome to America? Go ahead, my brother.
Acts chapter 14 and verse 16. Who in times past suffered all nations to walk in their own ways. Nevertheless, he left not himself without witness, in that he did good, and gave us rain from heaven and fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness. And with these sayings, scarce restrained they the people, that they had not done sacrifice unto them. And there came there certain Yehudis from Antioch and Iconium, who persuaded the people, and having stoned Saul, drew him out of the city, supposing he had been dead.
All right, we're going to go to James chapter 5, and we're going to read verses. Go ahead.
Before you leave that graphic, I want them to see in Mercury, you pointed out the things of Zeus in there. In the bottom right here where it says in the definition, the fleet-footed messenger of God.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all remember the first Nikes had the the Nike?
Yep.
There go your Nike right there. You see your wings?
Mm-hmm.
They even made a new shoe where there's some kind of idiot walking around with them big wings sticking out the end of his shoe. Because that's the original Nike. If you look at the first Air Jordans,
Right.
they got those wings on them. So there go your Nike right here. And they got shoes. If you look and search on them, they have shoes that have those wings on the end of the shoe.
So we just can't get rid of them gods.
No, we got the gods on the shoes. Go ahead.
And we're going to go to James chapter 5, and we're going to start at verse 7. And it says, And there came thither certain Yehudis from Antioch and Iconium, who persuaded the people, and having stoned Saul, drew him out of the city, supposing he had been dead. Now, when you go to Acts chapter 14 and verse 1, it says, And it came to pass in Iconium that they went both together into the synagogue of the Yehudis, and so spake, that a great multitude both of the Yehudis and also of the Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Yehudis stirred up the Gentiles and made their minds evil affected against the brethren. Long time therefore abode they, speaking boldly in the Adonai, which gave testimony unto the word of his grace, and granted signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the multitude of the city was divided, and part held with the Yehudis and part with the apostles. And when there was an assault made both of the Gentiles and also of the Yehudis with their rulers to use them despitefully and to stone them, they were aware of it and fled on to Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia. So they left. Can we go to the next graphic, please? So they left Iconium. I don't know if we can see where Iconium is, right? And they left and they went down to Lystra and Derbe. Now, when we got back over to verse 19, and there came thither certain Yehudis from Iconium, from Antioch and Iconium, who persuaded the people, and having stoned Saul, drew him out of the city, supposing he had been dead. So, chapter 14, they first started out in this place and left. But you see how mess follows you? They left to get away from the mess, but the mess is still following them. Be careful how you hear, what you hear, because you might think mess goes away, but it don't go away. It will follow you. Go ahead, my brother.
James chapter 5 and verse 7. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Adonai. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Adonai draweth near. Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door.
And if we're all working towards righteousness, what do we have to grudge against each other? Your weakness is another man's strength. If we're supposed to be a body, then that should help to strengthen you. Go ahead.
Verse 10. Take, my brethren, the prophets who have spoken in the name of the Adonai, for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience.
And we have to understand what they went through. It's not going to be any different for us. It's not going to be any easier for us. But we have an advantage they didn't have. We've got the book. We've got the stories. We've got the trials and tribulations. So when certain things come, it shouldn't be a surprise. They paved the way. They had to go through the ups and downs. There was nobody before them that set the path. So we've got the advantage by looking at the examples that they set forth, the things that they went through and how they dealt with it, and even what Yahweh has written down of how to deal with things. My older brother says it's a good book of stories. It's a good book of stories for life. Good book of stories with great examples of trials and tribulations. What they say, if you wanted this in here, what's that thing? Prego. It's like Prego, it's in here. Anything you can think about, good, bad, or indifferent, it's in here. Go ahead, my brother.
Sure. Now, verse 11.
Yes, sir.
Behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, and have seen the end of the Adonai, that the Adonai is very much pitiful and of tender mercy. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea, and your nay be nay.
And that's where a lot of us can't get into. Just saying yes or no. We've got to add more to it. A lot of times you can cut a situation or conversation, a problem short. Yes, no. End of it. Keep it moving. Because what the scriptures tell us, you're going to have to account for every idle word. Go ahead.
Lest ye fall into condemnation. Verse 13. Is any among you afflicted? Let him pray. Is any merry? Let him sing psalms. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Adonai. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Adonai shall raise him up. And if he have committed sins, they shall be forgiven him. Confess your faults one to another, and pray one for another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much.
That is a great saying. Confess your faults one to another and pray one for another. But instead what we do is we'll go confess somebody else's faults. Go talk about somebody else's faults. And act like everything in our life is great. Go ahead.
Elijah was a man subject to like passions as we are, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain, and it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and heaven gave rain, and the earth brought forth her fruit. Brethren, if any of you do err from the truth, and one convert him, let him know that he which converteth the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sins.
But we can't convert that person. We can't help that person if we're in agreement with the nonsense that's being spread. Have we become to that point that we're on a journey here of truth and righteousness? Are we afraid to tell somebody the truth? Are we afraid to stand up for righteousness? Are we begging friends? That's a question we have to ask ourselves. How do you help someone if you're afraid to tell them the truth? But then you have those who will be bold-faced, straight, and tell you about yourself. But oh, please don't tell them they have an issue. If you are able to give, you should be able to receive. Don't be ready to give correction and not be willing to receive correction. We're going to go to 2 Samuel chapter 23, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5. It is truly the actions of a few who err from the truth that try to cause schism in the body. The moment that they are confronted with the error, they begin to grasp at straws and bending every ear that will listen, even if it means reaching out to those who are no longer part of the body, to tell how they feel they have been wronged, so as to give the impression that we're not just in our doings. But as they refuse to be converted from the error of their ways, they cause their multitude of sins to be revealed, which would have been hidden if only they had accepted their error and kept silent. Like my elder used to say, you can go do what you want to do, and somehow a little birdie is going to come and tell. 2 Samuel chapter 23, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5.
Now these be the last words of Dawid. Dawid, the son of Yesse, said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of Elohim of Jacob, of the Elohim of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel said, the Spirit of Yahweh spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. The Elohim of Israel said, the rock of Israel spake to me. He that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of Elohim. And he shall be as the light of the morning, when the sun riseth, even as morning without clouds.
And there's the thing, he that rules over men must be just. And once again, that's what I'm saying, we're striving to be just men. But we can't be just if we're in agreement with everything. You can't be just if people are able to pull you left, right, and center. You can't be just if you're neutral. But don't be quick to jump to conclusions as soon as you hear stuff. This is coming from Dawid. We all know he wasn't a just man in a lot of his actions. But yet, Yahweh says he was a man after my own heart. So then we have that place where you can make mistakes, but because if your heart's in the right place, then Yahweh can say, hey, that's a just man. The problem is we're worrying about what people think. It don't matter if you think I'm just or not. What matters at the end of the day is if Yahweh says, you know what, Kish heart's in the right place. That's what's going to matter to me in the end. We all have to look within ourselves and see what we're fighting for. All of us don't have the same strength. But can we really say that we're that strong link for the weaker brother or sister? Or do we use that weaker brother or sister to put or push our agendas? Go ahead.
You know, I just wanted to say this, my brother, because, you know, Yahshua even said, you know, to him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne. And we know, yes, we do have the unrighteous and the sinners, and not saying that we are without sin amongst us, and there's certain things that we have to deal with in that way.
Right.
But as you're saying, you know, we don't consider, you know, overcoming self and dealing with what the weaknesses we have within ourselves, and, you know, being able to you know, admit it and be able to pray about it, you know. And and that's one of the things where, you know, we need to understand too about overcoming as we, you know, take this walk. You know, it's you know, we always seeing other folks, man, and not seeing.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get out of your own way.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute that you can start saying, "Hey, I've got this fault, I've got this problem," and you can reach out to your brothers and sisters, that's the first step of growth. If somebody can come to you and explain, say, you know, I see you do this, and you might want to look into this. And you can say, you know, I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. That's the beginning of your growth. But as long as you running and pretending like everything's okay, then guess what the rest of us gonna do? Pretend like everything's okay for you.
And it's not to upset anyone, you know, when we say something. But at the end of the day, if that conversation allows either me or you as the individual to do better or to see better in the actions, then, you know, it's not anything to make you as an individual you're upset by mentioning, you know, what you're doing or how your actions was. At the end of the day, is we should be looking out for each other.
Should be. That's the key word.
Yeah.
Should be. But once again, once you see a person you can't talk to them or you can't tell them anything, how far are you willing to go? Are you going to continue to cast your pearls among swines? At some point, you have to let them go. Go ahead.
Eliel said something pretty powerful about can you acknowledge that particular thing? When you get ready to pray, if you have not acknowledged the situation, your prayer, we read about your prayer can become sin, your prayer can become abomination. You have to ask yourself, what is happening to your prayer if you can't acknowledge the situation that's before you, that has been presented to you, but then you're gonna go and get on your knees to pray to your God? What has your prayer become?
I mean, we see even with Saul, you know, he admitted he had an infirmity, but he kept talking about it. He didn't hide it. He was open with it. And he let you know, hey, I saw it. I prayed about this many times. I'm not going to hide and pretend like everything's okay. Nah, I have an infirmity. I got a problem. Go ahead, brother.
And just to bring what you're saying, with his infirmity, he did pray about it. It wasn't taken away from you to then give up on your journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Some of us be out the door. Forget this. Go ahead.
2 Samuel chapter 23 and the ending of verse 4. As the tender grass springing out of the earth by clear shining after rain. Although my house be not so with Elohim, yet he hath made with me an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and sure. For this is all my salvation and all my desire, although he make it not to grow.
Now, here's King David. The man just tell you he knows his house ain't right. He said, although my house be not so with Elohim. But then he said, guess what? He's got a desire. He's got a desire to make it right. We're going to go to Ecclesiastes chapter 7. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, and we're going to start at verse 15. King David knew he wasn't a just man. But when his wrongs was brought before him, he repented right away and did not run to talk about Nathan being an unjust man. Even in his desire to build Yahweh a house, he was not allowed to do so. But still yet, he held his peace. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, and we're going to start at verse 15.
All things have I seen in the days of my vanity, there is a just man that perisheth in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man that prolongeth his life in his wickedness. Be not righteous over much, neither make thyself over wise.
Now, you know, that statement, a lot of people might say, well, what does he mean? Okay. I had to look at some things, and I don't know, I guess some of us just look at things differently throughout life. And I look at these old people as miserable and horrible. And there's your prolonging of your life. Because I used to say, you know, we always heard the saying, the good die young. And most of us say, it's unfair, they died at such a young age. Do you understand the blessing for some people to pass before the age of 20? And if they were good and they passed before 20, they got nothing accounted on to them. But now you prolong life in your unrighteousness, and Yahweh just has you holding on, just hoping you would just get it right. So the next time you see that old person that's suffering and they're mean as all hell, just hope that be not you. My mom said a statement, and I'm trying to live up to this statement. I'm trying to get old and better, not old and bitter. Go ahead.
Why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Verse 17. Be not over much wicked. Be not over much wicked, neither be thou foolish. Why shouldest thou die before thy time? It is good that thou shouldest take hold of this. Yes, also from this withdraw not thine hand, for he that feareth Elohim shall come forth of them all. Wisdom strengtheneth the wise more than 10 mighty men which are in the city.
Now, a lot of us are set on knowledge. But when you're gaining knowledge, that knowledge should lead to wisdom. That knowledge should allow you to see certain things and say, okay, I see where this is going to go. Even in an approach with an individual, you can start a conversation and say, whoa, you know what? Let me back off. I can see that this is not going to go the right way. Let me take a couple steps back, or even let me take a deep breath. That's where the wisdom should step in. But some of us just want to get knowledge and don't allow for knowledge to apply or turn into wisdom. And it becomes our own detriment in the end. There's a way you approach any situation. That's why I started to with this out. All of us are just men, just women. And there might be people who are not even in leadership position that you might have put on a pedestal. So please be careful of conversations and how people come at you with certain things. Me personally, I had a friend once told me I was the only person he could trust. My reply to him was, I'm a human being capable of letting you down just like anybody else. But within that conversation, I had to look at something. I was going to be on that pedestal as long as I agreed with everything that he wanted. So do we allow people to put us in those boxes or in those situations? Because the minute I didn't agree with something that he said or wanted to do, I was going to be looked differently. So please be careful of what we let people put upon us. friendship can't be one-sided. A relationship can't be one-sided. So please, please, I'm asking all my brothers and sisters, let's open our hearts and our minds to be able to receive correction as well as we're capable of giving correction. That's all we're going to do for tonight. Everybody enjoy your new moon. Shalom.
Yeah, shalom, bro. Praise God.